interact and so on. And try and hear about the way the policy evolution and chat about some of the issues.
Okay.
Message across as well, because there's when you want to mix them up in terms of slides.
Hello everyone. I'm really loath to interrupt the conversation. Very apologetically, I am going to interrupt the conversation. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you everyone. And this is our final session. And if this morning was learning from the last year, this afternoon this is learning about our plans and us learning from you about what you think of those plans. And once again, we have a trio of fine speakers for you. And they are, and let me introduce Nick Futcher, who's our brand manager, who's going to introduce the new Oxfam brand. Andrew Horton, who's our Director of Trading, and Andrew Barton, right at the back. Thank you, Andrew. Come up front. Andrew Barton, who's the Head of Relationship Marketing, and who will be talking also. So if you come up one after another and we'll give your presentations, and then, as with this morning, we'll take questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Afternoon, everybody. As I said, my name is Nick Futcher, so I'm the brand manager for Oxfam GB, and I've been at Oxfam 5 years last week, actually, and loved every minute. So I've got 10 minutes to talk to you about a very exciting moment in Oxfam's future, and I think this is a real milestone for Oxfam, and it's the culmination of a 2-year project to align our brand across 17 affiliates and the 92 countries that we work in. And that in itself is no mean feat, and along the way over 500 people have been involved in some way, either consulted or actively involved. So it's been a very comprehensive process. But before I get into that, some people might be thinking, well hang on, how come we've even got a brand manager? I didn't know Oxfam was a brand. I may be wrong, but I've encountered this before. So there's a common belief that brands are sort of commercial, belong to the commercial world. But the fact is we are a brand, and in fact we're an incredibly strong brand, particularly here in the UK. And the thing about a brand is it's more than just the logo, and it's more than just a few colours. It's something much richer, or it should be something much richer and much deeper than that. There's millions of quotes out there for what is the definition of a brand, but I quite like this one, which is the guiding force that informs and shapes the experiences you offer, the models you design, and the culture you inspire. And I can see how maybe business models isn't quite right for Oxfam, but generally the activities that you undertake. So it's really a kind of summation of who we are, what we do, what we believe in, what we stand for. So it should be a very rich and very deep thing. And for Oxfam, it's one of our most valuable assets. It really helps us to achieve our mission by inspiring support, respect and loyalty amongst our audiences, amongst the people that we work with, and even the people that we are trying to influence in our day-to-day work. So the Oxfam brand is actually a very strong and very powerful thing that can do a lot of things for us. And that is particularly the case in the UK, as I mentioned. Oxfam, is very well known and very respected in the UK. So that kind of begs the question then, why do we need to go for a global brand? And there's just a few reasons here which I'll really quickly go through. First of all, it's quite hard to see, but this is a snapshot from Facebook. And it's just a quick reference point for the fact that our audiences and the media that they use are and is far more global than it ever used to be. So if you go on Facebook now and you search for Oxfam, you get all these Oxfams, and you get more down here. And they range from Oxfam GB, you get the Dalston shop, you get a group in Salisbury, you get Oxfam America, Oxfam Mexico, and so on. So it's really easy for our audiences to experience us in a global way. So we have to be consistent when we do that. Another strong reason for having global identity is that it is part of our move to being one Oxfam, which I'm sure is something you've heard about already. But this idea that we need to work much more closely together around the world as a confederation, and having a global brand enables us to do that much, much better. One other reason also is just the awareness levels, and this isn't so much a problem for us here in the UK. 99% of adults have heard of Oxfam in the UK, which is absolutely extraordinary. A lot of brands would absolutely kill for that. But when you go to other countries and other affiliates, those numbers can be much, much lower. So in Germany, for example, only 10% of adults have heard of Oxfam. So for those other affiliates in other countries, it's really important to have a strong brand, because that then enables them to get those levels of awareness so that they can get more support, so they can be more influential, so they can raise more money. Another reason is that we are in many ways functioning on a much more global level, but particularly in campaigning. So I'm sure you all know about the GROW campaign. Oxfam's probably most global campaign so far, simultaneously launched in 45 countries. You can't run something as large and as global as that without being consistent in who you are, what you stand for, and what you're trying to say to your audiences. And the final one, and perhaps to some people the most critical, is that at the end of the day it can save money. It really boils down to economies of scale. And so again, if we can all work off the same hymn sheet, then we can ultimately save money. So moving on, what do we need to build a strong global identity? First of all, we need a very singular description of ourselves. We need to all be saying the same thing about who we are and what we do. Secondly, we need a really consistent look and feel for ourselves, so that when all those audiences encounter us all around the world, they're getting the same experience, unlike the current situation where these are comms from all around the world. You can see they're all very different, and even our logos can vary, so we need to change that. And then thirdly, we seem to have lost a picture there, we need to be relevant to people's lives, and this is really, really critical. We could disappear into a room and create a new global brand for Oxfam, but if we don't consider our audiences, then it's an absolute waste of time. And what they're telling us is that they want to take more control of their lives, they want to take more control of their futures, and the futures of their children and their grandchildren, but also they want to see more innovation coming out of organisations like ours, more tangible innovation that really makes change happen. They also want a sense of progress. They don't want to see dead ends anymore. Okay, we don't necessarily have to show them the perfect utopia, but at least get across them that change is happening, that progress is being made. And finally, they like to see organisations that are trying to change the rules, that are trying to change the systems. So again, when they hear about the fact that we do campaigning, that resonates really strongly with them. So we need to capture all those things in that global identity going forward. So there are three elements that make up the global identity. The purpose, which is what is our role in the world. Basically, why does Oxfam get out of bed in the morning and do what it does? Secondly, what is our offer to people who we are asking to get involved with us? And then thirdly, what is our personality, which speaks for itself. So firstly, the purpose, Oxfam and its role in the world. The description here is that we are a global movement for change. Now that is quite a step on in terms of describing what Oxfam is, if you think about it. And that's been very, very deliberate, because taking in what we've learned about what people want from organisations like ours, they want to move on from this very traditional old idea of charity, of handouts, of a one-way relationship. And the idea of being a global movement for change is what we do is we bring people together and we make change happen so that there is no longer a future where poverty exists. And that's really critical. And these three bits at the bottom just say that this is how Oxfam achieves this, because we want justice in the world. We speak out for systemic change. And then really critically, we make things happen here and now on the ground. So we like to describe ourselves as a global movement for change. The thing that we offer to people, the proposition, is the idea of a positive future now. And that's a future free from injustice, poverty. So when we're asking people to support us, asking people to work with us, we're saying if you collaborate with Oxfam, if you join this movement for change, together we can build this better future where poverty no longer exists. Finally, the personality. The description we've got is that we are a practical visionary. Often these personalities are these sort of two words that feel slightly at odds to each other, but I think this is a really good encapsulation of Oxfam, because on the one hand we've got the big picture thinking, we've got the kind of planning for the future, but it's the on-the-ground stuff that we're doing right now that enables us to make that happen, that enables us to think that way, and enables us to be credible in those spaces. So those are the sort of core elements. Then you bring all that together and you say, well, okay, how's this actually going to look to audiences? And what we've got here is something that should feel much more global, a lot less Western, a lot less corporate. If you think of that idea of being a practical visionary, what we've got here is very kind of bright colours and patterns, a very hopeful, very optimistic brand. One that feels kind of quite handmade, I suppose. So this actual typeface is actually hand cut, and we own it. It's Oxfam's typeface. Showing that there is hope, showing that there is progress is really, really critical. We've got some other examples here of how it's brought to life. And again, as I say, it's a very vibrant, very spirited brand. There's a very small change, which I'd like to point out, which is the Oxfam is now capitals. It's one of those very subtle things that designers do, which add up to a greater whole, but it means we're much more determined, we're much bolder. There was a feeling that we were being a little bit apologetic, but really we should be putting ourselves out there. Just some more examples here, and we've got some on some boards which anyone who comes to our discussion group can see. And of course, critically, we've had to consider the digital world going forward, so that has been a big part of developing this brand. So I think that's my 10 minutes. Sorry, that's quite a crash course in something that I think is quite exciting, but obviously there's going to be room for questions later. Thank you very much.